Welcome to Season 2, the official podcast of the Fish Wrapper publication. Our goal is to bring you story content to inspire, encourage, and uplift the soul. It's our hope you find these stories refreshing, thought-provoking, and motivating as you face the challenges of everyday life. So turn us up and tune your ears, and let's get started by jumping right into the story.
Grandpa Quits Retirement. Adapted by K. N. Hardin. Read by Michael D'Annunzio. As I grow older, the ravages of time are increasingly evident in my friends and contemporaries. I'm always noticing how bald they are becoming, how crotchety, how paunchy. Yet these signs are barely discernible in myself, of course. Like most men, the reward, or threat, of retirement occurred to me occasionally. But it was something to be reckoned with in the distant future. Then I came down with the flu. And while I was recovering from the wonder drugs prescribed to combat my ailment, my physician suggested that I get away. He needs to take things easy for a while, the doctor explained to my wife. Retire. Retire? Well, go south and sit in the sun. I mumbled in protest, but my wife thrust a thermometer in my mouth. And before I knew what was happening, the car was loaded with our personal belongings, suitcases, knitting bags, and paper boxes tied with string. I was tucked away among the luggage, well covered with lap robes and armed with a bag full of vitamins and medicine that was equaled in weight only by the cosmetic carried by my wife. I protested up until the last minute that I couldn't be away from the office, but my son blithely assured me that I was only a figurehead anyhow. Those weren't his exact words, of course, but that's the impression I got. As we drove off, I could see him mentally erasing the "and son" from the door of our law offices, and having his own name printed in large block letters. After several days on the road, we arrived at the Sunset by the Sea Motel, which was recommended to my wife as an ideal place for a couple to spend their sunset years. I was somewhat disturbed by the implication of sunset, but I figured that at least it was better than twilight by the sea. When I looked out the window on the morning of our arrival, I noticed that the motel was a series of efficiency apartments built U-shaped around a patio where the guests were already sunning themselves. All eyes turned in my direction as I stepped outside, trying desperately to hide my pale skin behind the morning paper as I settled into a chair. My first impression of my neighbors was that of motion. The man on my right, who introduced himself as Mr. Donovan, retired railroad man, was rocking vigorously in an old cane-bottomed chair. My neighbor on the left, a Mr. Kinley from Iowa, shot back and forth in his motorized wheelchair. Conversation with these gentlemen proved somewhat difficult. Mr. Kinley informed me of his capable, industrious son, who ran his prosperous, up-to-date hardware store in Iowa, of his brilliant grandchildren, and his ruptured disc. But as he did so, he shot back and forth so rapidly that I could only catch fragments. I got along pretty well with Mr. Donovan, however, after I geared my chair to his gait, but by noon I was suffering from a mild case of motion sickness. There was a homey, all in one big happy family atmosphere about the motel, and so it didn't go long until most of the people introduced themselves. Mrs. Oglesby, an elderly widow who lived several doors down, came by to pass the time almost every day. Her gray hair and stooped posture reminded me a lot of my mother. And I guess she was probably about the same age as well.
Mrs. Oglesby seems like a very nice person.
My wife commented at lunch one day. I wasn't so sure, though, and informed her that I thought she could be really snobbish if she so desired. My wife thought her manners probably had more to do with loneliness. My wife took to retirement like a duck to water. She enrolled in a craft class, took Spanish lessons, and joined a group who made atrocious little objects out of dyed seashells. Every morning she took off in a flurry of pastel pedal pushers, floppy straw hat, and shell-encrusted sunglasses, leaving me inert on the patio, peacefully soaking up Florida sunshine.
We hope you've been enjoying this story. We will continue in just a moment. We pause to discuss the sponsor for this episode. If your business isn't using key marketing tools, you could be missing out on valuable opportunities to grow. That's where Little Mountain Printing comes in. They offer powerful marketing solutions like postcard mailers and websites to attract new customers, brochures to showcase your products or services, and promotional products to show appreciation to clients. With the right marketing in place, your business has the best chance to thrive. Get started today by calling Little Mountain Printing at 717-933-8091 or visit them online at littlemountainprinting.com. Now let's return and finish the story.
I was perfectly content, but my wife felt that I couldn't possibly be having a good time just doing nothing but sitting in the sun.
Why don't you go play checkers with Mrs. Oglesby while I'm gone, dear?
She suggested.
Her daughter told me she enjoys playing checkers.
That sounded like a pretty good idea, so I got out my checkerboard and spent my mornings on the patio playing checkers, while my wife was out improving her mind and constructing seashell objects.
How was your game today, dear?
My wife asked one day at lunch. Huh, I murmured.
What's the matter?
My wife raised her eyebrows questioningly. Why did you have to ask? She beat me every game, I replied rather disgustedly. My wife didn't know what to say after that, and I decided playing checkers with Mrs. Oglesby was finished. I didn't mind particularly, because the truth of the matter is, Mrs. Oglesby was beginning to monopolize the conversations with anecdotes about her grandchildren. And if there's one thing I find uninteresting, it's other people's grandchildren. Then my wife conspired with Mr. Donovan and Mr. Kinley to get me interested in a hobby of some sort to help me relax. It seemed useless to point out that if I were any more relaxed, I'd roll right out of my chair. Mr. Donovan loaded me down with fish and game magazines. He even tried to teach me how to tie flies, but I stuck a fishhook in my finger and gave that up. Mr. Kinley, who was an amateur photographer, took me in hand then. His hobby was snapping candid shots of motel guests, taking special pains to catch us in our most awkward moments, ready to fall out of the chairs or our mouths sagging open as we napped. He allowed me to assist him in developing films a couple of times, and I must confess that I found the process so fascinating that I purchased a small do-it-yourself developing kit. After my wife left for her class, I fashioned a darkroom in the kitchen area. I drew the blinds, stuffed the cracks in the doors and windows with towels, and prepared my developing solutions. Then, just as I switched off the lights and was getting ready to dunk a roll of film in the developing tank, the motel maid burst into the room, exposed my film, and scared the living daylights out of me. Seems she was walking by and saw towels being stuffed in the windows and thought things looked rather suspicious. Shortly after that incident, I was pleased to receive an invitation to join the Sunset Motel Boating Club. Every morning, the members went down to the docks, where they tinkered with motors and readied their fishing equipment. It seemed to me that they spent more time tinkering than they did fishing. But after all, it's the fellowship that counts. The only flaw in our Florida retreat was the fact that we missed our grandchildren. I would never have believed it, but the fact remains that absence indeed makes the heart grow fonder of one's grandchildren. So, when our youngest daughter wrote that she was flying down with her twin boys for a visit, my wife and I were overjoyed. We purchased cute little T-shirts with swordfish painted on them, and we stocked up on sand buckets and shovels so the boys would have something to entertain themselves with. The boys, however, proved to be remarkably self-sufficient when it came to entertaining themselves. They raced around the patio, chasing each other and asking every one of the motel guests if they wanted a piece of their licorice. They placed a toy alligator under my chair that, without my glasses, looked very real, and they nearly reduced me to nervous collapse with their attempts to climb the TV antenna in front of the motel. My daughter spent her time lounging, but occasionally she raised her head long enough to bellow, "Calm down, you two." I was sitting on the patio one morning reading the paper and minding my own business, when the twins, without warning, leaped up on the rockers of my chair. This suspended me suddenly in midair, and I yelled out frantically, "Help! Help!" The boys held me there, squealing gleefully, until their mother looked around and hollered, "Boys!" They leaped off immediately, and I catapulted out of the chair and into the path of Mrs. Oglesby, who happened to be walking by at that ill-timed moment. As Mrs. Oglesby and I untangled ourselves, I apologized with great embarrassment, all the while looking around to see what had happened to those boys. My wife came to the door of our apartment just in time to see us struggle to our feet. She listened intently, nodding in agreement, as Mrs. Oglesby put all the blame on me and skillfully described how I had launched myself directly into her path. At this point, I was even less sure about my wife's assessment of Mrs. Oglesby being a nice person, but at this point it was 2 against 1. Fortunately, neither of us was seriously injured, except for my own self-esteem. I limped into the apartment, where I spent the rest of the day nursing a wounded knee and pride, while mulling over the fact that maybe it wasn't such a good idea to have the grandchildren come after all. Next morning brought a letter from my son.
Dear Dad, everything is getting along just fine here. Don't worry about a thing. We still haven't found those depositions you flew to Seattle to get, though, but they'll turn up someplace. Mrs. Henders quit last week, but I've already hired a new girl. She's doing pretty well, considering she's just out of business school, and I expect she'll figure out Mrs. Henderson's filing system pretty soon. The key witness on the court hearing last week didn't show up, and I guess I told you that we lost the damage case that we were working on when you left. That's about all the news for now. I wanted to let you know that everything is getting along just fine. Don't worry about a thing. Your loving son.
I was like an old fire horse here in the Bell. I was finished with retirement. We packed our gear, strapped the twins in the back seat, and headed for home. And I'm pleased to report that my son seems surprisingly glad to see me back in the office. The end.
We hope you enjoyed this story and will join us again soon when we unravel another adventure from the pages of The Fish Wrapper. We want to remind you that The Fish Wrapper is available by subscription. Each issue of The Fish Wrapper is jam-packed with story content, amazing recipes, games, jokes, and much, much more. Our readers never want to miss an issue. And you can order yours today by visiting thefishwrapperonline.com or by calling 717-400-FISH. That number again is 717-400-FISH. We encourage you to like and subscribe to this podcast, ensuring that you never miss a new episode. See you again soon, and may our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ guide you.